start this recording, and then so we're gonna continue working on this demo for Frankenstein, and there's so many pieces that make it up that I think it would just be cool to address a lot of the pieces. Whenever you do sculpts, right, you'll notice that the more, not necessarily detail, but the more you put inside of the character, whether it's the background, the lighting, like everything that you attempt to model, I kind of consider like you're leveling up your character skills, you're leveling up your modeling skills. So don't ever underestimate, like, all right, if you've got to make this little, this flask right here, the process of you getting, let me see, I don't think you guys can see it. So if I was going to model, these bottles, I can't remember what they're called, Erlenmeyer flasks or something like that. I don't know. I haven't been in science class since like high school, so I don't remember any of that stuff. But the flasks, the sciencey stuffs, everything you model kind of gives you like a little leg up, a plus in your character and your modeling journey. And in my concept class, I was talking about having 3D soft skills and the importance of having 3D skills when it comes to being a concept artist. And, people don't realize how much 3D artists in general have to know a little bit of just some 3D. I've got friends in the industry that, they are some of the best 2D character artists that I probably know, right? Like, and they have to use 3D. It's a part of their, their workflow, and we're getting to an age where AI is going to be part of the workflow. Like, as much as like we all lament it, like, you have to remember that the name of the game is efficiency, speed, and the consumer, the client, only cares about the outcome. They don't care how you get there, right? And if there's somebody who can get them there faster than you can, chances are they're going to go that way if it's cheaper, more cost effective, and delivers what they want. So, I want to build it into you guys that, hey, the name of the game is efficiency. The name of the game is getting the job done. Get the job done, right? You don't have time to, just be, because you want to be a purist, or because you want to be, if your main goal is to eat, feed your family, be able to, buy clothes for your kids and afford rent, and, you like food, right? Like, we all like food, so I want us to get in the habit of, by any means necessary, right? Because the next artist isn't gonna be like, oh, I'm not gonna do that. They're gonna try. The studios are cutting people left and right. Marvel, from one of my friends just told me, Marvel laid off more than 1,000 employees, right? The week prior, Epic Games, the guys who make Unreal Engine, Twinmotion, they laid off 1,000 plus employees, and all of this is in the service of artificial intelligence and trying to kind of build their AI infrastructure. Even Disney, Pixar, they're starting to try to go towards artificial intelligence, and people are losing their jobs. So I say all of that to say, you have to just keep learning, keep getting better, keep getting faster, right? If it's not getting, the competition isn't getting less, right? The competition is getting more and more, and people are finding ways to work around and get to the same result that you're getting faster. So I implore you, learn the fundamentals, learn how to do the modeling, learn how to do the sculpting, learn how to do the concepts, learn everything you need to learn so that you can, like, at the very least, you have the baseline. So if then you can throw on AI knowledge on top of it as like icing on the cake, is what I kind of call it, like, and the cherry on top, right? So you want to give yourself a good foundation of understanding polyflow, understanding, like, hey, how does anatomy work? Where am I, is my anatomy correct, right? If you understand that basic stuff, you'll know when what you're looking at is correct, when it's not correct, right? Part of your job while you're in school is training your eye, right? What's your vision like, in the sense of, not like, do you have 20/20 vision? I don't care about that. I wear glasses. That doesn't matter. What I'm saying is, you got to train your eye to see detail, to see where things are wrong, to see where things are right, to see what needs to be changed. You need to have a discerning eye. And I'm still practicing it. And I work in the industry every day, right? I'm still practicing that skill of noticing detail, noticing when something's off, right? Noticing, hey, this arm is a little longer, this muscle isn't in the right position, right? Things like that will change your perception, will change the way you do your art. So I want you guys to keep those little things in mind as you're kind of coming up, as you're doing your work, right? You got to put in time. You've got to put in time. Every single moment you have, you should be modeling something, sculpting something, drawing something. If you're a writer, be writing something. Anytime, any free time you have should be spent pursuing that goal. If you're not doing that, if your life's goal isn't in service of that mission, right? You're going to be doing yourself a disservice when it comes to the real world, because you're not going to be able to compete with people who that is what they do, right? There's a lot of people out there that, you're going for a job, trust me, they want it. They haven't slept in 3 days because they've been doing their portfolio. They haven't slept in 4 weeks because they've been practicing modeling, practicing sketching, practicing ZBrush, practicing, Max or Blender, whatever their tool is. They're putting in those hours so that they can, whenever the opportunity comes knocking, right, they're not trying to get ready. They're already ready for it. They're already just ready to go. They're not, oh man, I got to do this. let me practice this. No. Because when they hire you for the job, they want somebody who's ready-made, who can plug and play. Like, that's really what most companies want, is a plug and play employee. We throw you in here, you can accomplish a bunch of stuff, and then we can get you paid and get you on your way. So, long diatribe aside, we can continue with sculpting our character over here. So, last class we kind of stopped here where we built the jacket and things like that. So with this guy, right, so I haven't even done any of the folds or anything yet, so maybe that's what I'll do here. So, maybe BDS, that's my Damien standard tool, and then it allows me to draw some of these folds. I might reduce the intensity quite a bit, right, so that I can increase it a little bit. Alright, so that will be that cut right there. So here's the thing in ZBrush you can do. If I do a stroke and I want that stroke to repeat and be more intense, I can hit 1 on my keyboard and it'll do just that. Alright, let me actually turn on no board, and then you guys can see my keystrokes. I don't want, so that if you look back on the video, you'll know exactly what I'm doing. So no board is my on-screen keyboard. You'll be able to see it whenever I'm doing the stuff that I'm doing. Alright, so let's get our sculpt on. So, like I was saying, I'm gonna boom, and then I can see it right there, so I'm just gonna like that. And then if I hit 1 on my keyboard, you can see it intensifies, right, the way that stroke is. And then I can do it on the back as well. And 1, 1. So we've got something here. Alright. And then you see that there's this line in the armpit, right? And this is like, you're just kind of following the guide, right? And then I'll show you guys what I'll do after you start to do some of these cuts for fabric. Right? We haven't really talked about... There's just so much for you guys to learn. So, in my other class, what I usually do is I go over like different types of fabric, different types of fold, diaper folds, zigzag folds, you know, drop folds, hanging folds, all sorts of folds that you should probably know. But this is a starter class, so like I don't go too in depth with that stuff because I feel like you guys can get a little overwhelmed. But let's turn on my stroke, lazy mouse. It's on. Let's turn on the radius. Let's go to stroke again, and then increase the size of it. And that's just gonna give me like a cleaner draw. Alright, so for this part I can go BMV, right? Because I'm looking at like this little dip right here, and then I can just use, right, my move tool to achieve something like that. Right. I'm just trying to achieve that. BDS again, return to my Damien standard. You know, maybe accentuate this a little bit. Alright, and then I can shift, smooth it out a little bit, and then do the same up here. Shift, smooth it out. Alright, so sometimes if you're trying to do something super stylized, right, so if you do a cut this way and you want to accentuate it, what you can do is do the opposite the other way. So just do an alt, right, alt, and then do the stroke in the other direction to make that, to accentuate that fold. You see what that does? So like what I'm trying to show you guys is when you're in ZBrush, when you cut this way and you hold down alt and then you do the opposite, you see I get this kind of nice crease, this nice kind of edge that happens there. Alright, so that's another little technique that you guys can kind of use whenever you're doing your sculpts. Alright, so you're going to cut one way, right, and then alt to do the opposite, and then shift, smooth, and you'll see that you get this very nice, crisp, kind of stylized cut to your model. All right, and there's obviously there's nothing that represents that in my model, so I'm going to remove it, but I just wanted to show you guys that that little technique. All right. So I do have like these little patches and stuff on his jacket, right? So I'm just gonna go here. I'm just gonna, right? And this is when you can use your extract meshes really, really well. Alright, use your extract meshes to your advantage. So then you would go into your subtool. Let's actually solo this and make sure. Alright, and then you would just essentially go extract. That's probably a little too high. So I'll probably reduce the thickness quite a bit, and then extract. That's too small. That's probably just right. I'm gonna increase the smoothing. There we go. And then you can accept it. And then you can do the same. I might solo this so that I can see what's going on underneath. Then clean it up. And then extract. Go, and then accept, turn solo off, and obviously let's go to our, it's asymmetrical, right? So there's a few ways to handle this. You can do it now or later, right? It's kind of up to you. This is fine for now. Just gonna Alright, I've got my mask on, so I'm just smoothing down the edges a little bit. Alright. And then I'll show you guys how to do like some of the stitching and stuff like that. I'll probably make like a simple either an insert mesh or something like that, and then use that for that. But in the meantime, what we've got is fine. Alright, we can use this control. So I have a mask. Okay, here's the thing. Because I know what's happening behind it, I'm kind of going fast. So what I did there was, if I solo it, you'll see I control drag this square to remove the mask that was previously on there so that I can draw a new mask. Alright, I messed up because like I know that there's a mask under there, so I kind of did it off of instinct instead of kind of trying to show you guys. So that's what I was doing under there, because you'll see me do like a quick control to do something or drag. Like, what the hell just happened? Well, there was a mask under there, and if I just continue drawing, right, trying to paint a new mask, I'd be painting double masks. But if you want to erase your mask that you have, you can do Control and Alt, and it'll do a minus or a subtraction. It'll remove the mask. But if you want to just clear out your mask, Control anywhere outside of your object, and you'll clear out your whatever previous mask that you have on your mesh. Alright, so there's a few things that so okay, let's do this little patch right here. So he's kind of got one on both sides. They're really not even. They're not really still really not symmetrical, but that's okay. We'll pretend they are. And then I'll show you guys how to do asymmetry. Alright. And you can see, so here's another thing that I want you guys to look at. Alright. So when you look at my mesh here, look at this mesh. Let me zoom in a little bit. And I'm going to show you the wireframe. Alright, here at the top, you can see how closely packed and dense my geometry is up here, and you can see how kind of warped and kind of skewed they are down here. Whenever you try to draw a mask on something like this, you're going to get wonky feelings. And the reason that's happened is because I've been sculpting on this mesh, right? I've been pushing and pulling polygons left and right, up, down, forward, backward, and it's kind of distorted my mesh. So for me to get a clean, right, like a clean mask on my model, I would need to go to my geometry, and then I would then go to modify topology, and then what I would want to do is either z-remesh it or decimate it. I prefer z-remesher because it gives me a few options. So I can do the same. I'm gonna turn off adapt, right? I don't think I have any poly frames. Let me solo this. I don't have any poly groups on this. I don't have any useful poly groups. There's some useful poly groups. So like there's the inside of the shirt is kind of useful. The back isn't really useful, but so you can do things like you can keep your groups. So these are my poly groups. So the yellow, the purple, the pink, the green, those are different poly groups, right? Those are different polygonal groups that you have on your mesh. So I can keep those, and then I can make sure that I'm using the same amount of polygons, right? Whatever it's got. So it's got about 1.4 million points on here. That's the active count for the model, and it's going to try to keep that same amount in my model. I can either go half or I can double it. I rarely go double because, you know, I think I like to prefer to like sculpt low and then decide when to go and divide the mesh myself. So I'll do same, and then I'll do a Z remesh. Give it a second. All right. So I've got some, so as you can see, it redistributed the way that, you see how these are super long, right? You can see that these are like longer rectangles, and then after my Z remesh, it tries to make everything more squares, right? There's a problem that it ran to up here where there's kind of a pole. And when you say pole in 3D, in kind of 3D lingo, you mean kind of like a high valence point. That probably made it a little more complicated. A point where a lot of different vertices meet, right? So that's what that is right there. And it can give you some really funky issues whenever it comes to your model. It's got some, right? Like it's got some right here, but this one doesn't bother me. If it was right here, it could mess up how I'm sculpting on my mesh. So what I'll do in that situation is I'll do the same again. Keep groups. Let's turn off keep groups. And then let's do no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna do, actually let's do half. And then let's Z remesh and see what we get. Alright, it's a little better. And it's kind of moved it. It's got one up here and one up here. Let's do keep. Let's go keep groups. And then the thing is, you can do that operation a few different times. So I can say, okay, you've got something here, and then I'm going to do same this time, and then I will try to Z remesh it again to try to retry to see if it'll move that into a more advantageous position for me. Okay, that's not bad. This isn't the worst. Let's do the same. There we go. Much cleaner. You know, I don't care if it moves it to somewhere on the back, which is what it did, right? The back, we're not, you know, I'm not going to be rendering this from the back, right? I'm going to be doing maybe like a 3Q front, you know, so that's perfectly fine, right? Like we're not going to notice that. All right, so what you notice though is it's tried to kind of amalgamate some of my detail. So I'm still going to have to go back in and then bring my detail back in. But now there's actually geometry that supports the details that I've already created in here. Right, as you guys can see that. So now what it's doing is saying, okay, so this is where you want the detail. Let me put that information in a place that kind of matches that detail that you've got going there. Alright, so I would just go back out and with my polygonal tool kind of cut this like this, cut this. So like this is when you start seeing some of the issues, right? Let's see. See, this point right here is so annoying. So right here, you see this star? This is a no-no. This is very, very annoying when it comes to 3D. Because, like I said, this is called a high valence point. You see how all of these edges meet here? It's going to mess up whenever you try to sculpt something over it. It's going to give you some funky looking nonsense. Right? You can mask over it by like increasing your geometry. Or like I can increase my geometry to where like it matters, but it doesn't matter as much. But in a situation when you're trying to work low to high, it can really start to kind of give you some funky looking issues. Like you can see when I do a stroke here, you see how pretty, right, this is over here. And then when I try to do something, it kind of crunches over here. So those are the kind of things you're going to want to pay attention to. Hey, where are my high valence points? Is it something that if I can Z-remesh, I can move it somewhere else, have it show up somewhere else? So these kind of little things are very important whenever it comes to your sculpt. So keep that kind of stuff in mind whenever you're doing yours. All right, so I might try to go around it. You know, that's probably the best I can do right now, right? You know, there you go. And then Alt to do the opposite. Alt, right? Kind of giving myself that fold. And doing the same here. And then just kind of building a language for the clothing itself. Alright, so I'm just going to cut in here like so. And then when I go my smooth, I'm going to reduce the percentage of it, and then I'm just going to smooth some of this stuff back out. Right, the reason is because whenever I do a little bit of smoothing, right, I don't want it to be too on the nose. I want it to be subtle, right, very subtle additions to it. Alright, let's turn off solo. Bring the rest of our mesh back in here for now. Alright. So now let's go back to this, and then I'm gonna see, here we go. Now whenever I draw my square to make that little patch, right, it's not as bad. Let's actually solo this back up. Alright, so I'm gonna remove that. If I divide it, I will get a much better, much cleaner square in there. Right. Then now I can go back into my subtool, extract this little piece. I'm going to accept it. Then I can just smooth it out a little bit. Nothing crazy. Then turn off solo again. Alright. So we've got our patches on here now. Everything's looking on the up and up for now. Alright, so let's address something else that's kind of big on this guy. So let's do a little hair. Alright, so there's a few different ways to attack his kind of particular hair. So we'll build the base mesh for the hair, and then I'll show you. So what I would do is maybe just start with give him a nice fade. Yeah, that I mean. You know what I'm saying? Bro got a mean cut.
Damn, that was cold.
You ever did that? You just failed the class. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me humble. I appreciate you. Alright. So now we're just going to give them a kind of a bowl cut. And I'm going to extract this anyway. Right? I'm going to extract all of this stuff. So I'm not really too worried about it being like super accurate. So let's do Alright, this is good enough for now. So we will then extract. I'm going to probably increase the extraction quite a bit. Oh, I said a bit, not that much, buddy. Alright, so see, here's why it's important to always check your mesh. See, I've got this extra little piece selected that I masked from earlier. So now I just want to go Control Alt and remove that. So now I've got my clean mask. Extra. Why does he have a mask in his nose? Oh my god. Excel. And then let's just reduce it. Just want to get a decent. I'm almost there. That's good enough. Let's accept this. And then, you know, smooth it out a little bit. But this really isn't the end all be all for the hair, obviously. So let's turn off solo. Alright. Shift to smooth. Oh, why his nose looks like that? Okay, BMV. Let's move this a little bit. BCB. Alright, so I'm going to turn off my symmetry for now. And then I'm going to reduce the intensity of this bad boy. It's too late. You already failed. Let it go.
That wasn't me this time.
Oh, that played? It just said preview. I was like, what are these sounds? And I thought there was a play and a preview one. I'm sorry. It was me that time.
Oh, God.
My influence has begun to spread.
BDS, I'm gonna... There we go. I'm just gonna use this a little bit to maybe start drawing some of these shapes that I'm seeing. Alright, you can see what I'm doing is I'm getting, let's go BMV, BMV. Alright, there's so many different ways to do hair, especially stylized hair. Alright. And then at the end of it, I'm still going to retopologize it. So move tool, shift, smooth, and then I've got my BCB, that's my clay tubes. Really want that to be super low, right? So that I'm getting kind of like that swoopy hair-like feeling in the strands as I'm drawing them, right? Got 1, 2, 3, and then BMV, right? Using that to kind of move these points out. And using that to kind of shape it a little bit. Might turn symmetry back on for the sides. I'm just using Alt to make it kind of recede a little bit. Back into has symmetry, and I'm like, what is happening? So at this point, you probably retopologize a little bit, just get yourself some more advantageous use of the polygons. A little cleaner. Alright. That is so low. And then let's go into our texture, image plane, and then just reduce the model opacity just a little bit.
He's got a toupee.
He does. BMV. Just trying to front, that does BDS. So I've got this one, and there's a smaller offshoot that I didn't address. go back to our textures, turn this on a little bit more. BCD, and then I can just go a little more. It's gonna look like fake strands, but that's okay. I want to still, after that, still kind of do a Z remesh. There we go. Reduce this a little bit more. And what this does is kind of fakes like there's like extra bits of hair and strands and stuff in there. Just gonna fill this back up a little bit. EDS. So you can see I'm just going back and forth with the Damien Standard, the clay tubes, the clay brush. You can really, go really far with just those 3 simple brushes. And then you can do the opposite, right? Especially for like stylized hair and things like that. You can really get away with just That's just that technique where you carve in with the Damien standard, right, on one side, and then I carve in and then alt to make it look kind of like a sharp. So you can get a lot of mileage out of just very simple techniques like that. And I think next class I'll show you how to do like individual strands of hair and things like that, if you want it to really stand out. So you can really start to just kind of carve away at it with just some of these very simple brushes. Right, move tool. Alright, so let's add some of these staples and stuff like that to it. Alright, so the first thing I would do is I would just append a cube. Very easy. Oh, we're done. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. Alright. God damn you people. Alright, just scale it down a little bit. Disappeared. Alright, if I hit the blue, I can scale it on that axis, the red, just individual axis like that, and then I'm just gonna scale it down. Right, so there's two ways you can do this. You can either like, well, you can do it like using the extract mesh, right? So that it like matches the contour of the head or whatever. But this works too, right? Like there's a bunch of ways to do everything in this program. So just gonna bring this guy up here, shift. Just gonna smooth this out a little bit. And then I'm just going to jam it into his head. Jam it in like so. I scale it in this way. And then I can rotate it a little bit this way. Move it up. Scale it down a little bit more. Go back to draw. Maybe we can use the move tool or something to move it in place. The move, not the move, this is the move tool. The move brush. And then he's got like a bunch of scars on his head, so like I can smooth this out a little bit. Alright, so he's got a bunch of scars. And solo this. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Calm down, bud. Alright, and we can use the same kind of tool. I'm gonna remove my symmetry mode. And that's a little too much. So I'm just gonna right above the eye. Like so. He's got one on his cheek. Kind of a laceration on his neck. His nose, it's a little angled. Right. It's kind of got one that's right here, but it's already kind of showing. So this is where, you know, you can try to do some meshes like that, but that's not very efficient. So here's where I would go to this guy, go to my move tool, and then, whoops, control, select. I can then use that as my new staples and stuff, and then move it around. Alright. So that's, you know, that's one of the advantages of, and you can do it if you do an extract mesh, just use the move tool to kind of do it, but just because the extract mesh isn't really like a square or cube, so you might get more, it just might take a little more for you to get it looking closer to what you want than if you just started with a cube that you formed into kind of like that staple look, and then you can use that to then make the staples around. So let's go back here, draw. here. That'll then move down a little bit, like so, and then control drag once again. Move down. And the cool thing about these is, so like, I've made all these here, and I'm like, oh yeah, I made all these, and I want to move them individually, so I'm going to control, because they all share the same poly group right now, that blue color. So what I can do is I can go into my deformations. No, actually, poly groups. Select rectangle. Whoops. Reorient this guy. So if I go back to my, and I deselect all, select, deselect all of these, and then if I do auto group, it'll give them all a different group. So now if I control shift select one, I can still affect that individual staple. Or I can still go in and then say here, let me rotate you a little bit like so. Alright. And then if I control shift, I can bring them back. So let's rotate this one. Okay, so let us control select that. Oops, alt. Just want to make this bigger. And you can keep using these if you want. So like, let's do. Obviously, it's going to take a little finagling to kind of get this guy in place. Scale it up a little bit. Another thing that would help is if I had some more resolution on this, but I've just avoided adding more resolution to the mesh in general, just because it'll help my computer run a little faster. But I mean, at some point in time, you're gonna have to go and then add some more resolution, and what that then allows you to do is just put in a little bit more detail in here. 3530, okay. Yeah. And then you can go back into some of these, and then right. Oops. I just realized I had my symmetry on. There you go. So this is when you start kind of adding a little more detail to your characters, and you're giving it a little bit more love, right? It's a slow process, but if you work it from small to big the way I'm doing, you will get a much better result, because it's like you're setting yourself up with all of these kind of like landmarks for where things are supposed to be, and then all you're just going back to do later on is accentuate those parts and those pieces and things like that. So like all of these cuts that I kind of laid the foundation for, right? So now they're still there. Just going back in, and now I'm just using my tools to make them a little more pronounced. Right now this cut will look like it's really cut in because, well, I already laid that foundation work, and now I'm just going back over it. It's now, it really looks like it's kind of like cut in there. And even some of the wrinkles you can start to kind of accentuate at this point. Right, so you can start to really, might do a lower intensity, but you know, you guys get the point. Alright. At this point I think you guys kind of get the gist. Does anybody have any questions for me before I wrap this up? Okay, well, if you guys don't have any questions for me, you guys are free to go. Just work on your piece and then turn what you have in, right? So we can start getting some reviews and get you guys to the next level. Alright, if you guys are still here, well, have a great rest of your day. If you're not, we didn't need you anyway. Alright, I'm going to stop there. Next week we'll deal with individual strands of hair, eyebrows, things like that, and then we'll go to like some of the stitching on the jacket, and like, we'll do some of these gears. And then after that, we'll just do the background stuff. And then we'll be ready to turn this bad boy in. Alright. Frankie's coming along.
He's looking good.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, did you ever find the alphas? Because I try to look on ZBrush again.
Oh, yes. Actually, I did. I know. I'm gonna post them in one of the threads. So what I would recommend everybody do is download them. Like, as I'm uploading them, download all of them, put them in your own folder for yourself. Damn it, maybe I should show you guys that before I go. How to use alphas, because I don't think I've ever showed you guys how to. Did I show you guys how to use alphas?
I think you showed it in the video where the audio got cut off.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not very good. Let me see if I can find it right now. Let's see. 3D folder, no. Alphas. Round sharp brushes. Cloth alphas. Alright, perfect. There's a clothing effect or clothing brush inside of ZBrush now that's kind of cool. I didn't show you guys how to do that, but it does exist. So, okay, I'll show you guys. So alphas they'll look like these little PSD folders, and there's a bunch of different versions and there's a bunch of different variations. So I've got stuff like skin, it's empty for now, I guess. Stencils, that's empty as well. Patterns, there we go. So I got some patterns, some paint, no, nature. There has to be another folder somewhere. Textiles, windows, wood. Let's see. Industrial stuffs. And then ground stuff. Alright, so let me do the cloth stuff. So if you have one of these, so I would you would just navigate to it. So I'm gonna copy that location, and then right here is where your alphas would be, and then you could either, can I drag it and drop it in there? No, let's see. File. Let's import it, and then Control V, cloth, and then you can just bring all of them in at once. Alright, so you can bring all of these in at once. Hit open. It's going to take a second to think. And then they're all in there. So you see it's loading them up in here. Alright. So once they're all loaded, you can then, so it's right now it's on my Damien standard brush, but I can do BST. BST. Alright, my standard brush. Alright. So I'm just going to go my alpha. This is my fold 1. So just in case if I wanted to do a fold here. So right now it's on dots. So that means that I'm just drawing them as dots right now. But what you really want to do is you're either going to want to do spray or drag select. So drag select allows you to then drag it on. Right? And then it kind of makes that fold for you. It's pretty cool. So if you have like a fold that you're trying to do or something like that, so you really can start to get some interesting looking clothing wrinkles. This guy has never ironed a shirt a day in his life, obviously. So that's how you would use them. So I will upload. So let me see. Let me do another one. So let's do alphas. Let's import a different one. Let's do, where's the industrial stuff? Screws. Rust. So now I use a lot of this for like background props and stuff like that. So like the wood ones, I made all these myself. So I made all these inside of Substance Designer, and I use this for like whenever I'm doing like a wooden prop. So I'll bring all these in. So shift, open these up, give it a second, and then let me add like a subtool to show you guys. So like if I had, I'll append this cube here. Alright, and then let's divide this a bunch. And then if I wanted to, I wanted to add like, hey, I've got like this, it can look like a rock. face, or let's see, where's a good one? There you go. And then you can really start to get some very interesting detail in there. Alright, and then I've got one that's like super noisy, or wood grain, or there's one with like wood knots and stuff in there. And then you can start to kind of use it for whatever you're using it for, whatever props you have. So for certain ones you can use it like that, or right, and then it actually deforms the geo, as you can see. So it's a really good way to kind of get detail in there in your model. So maybe we're using this for like this is the base for our character or something. So, yeah. You start drawing all this detail or whatever it is that you want on there. Alright, so that's it. I will upload those to a chat that I will label alphas, and then you can just download the alphas from there. Alright?
Alright, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, thanks for reminding me about that. Much appreciated. Alright, have a great rest of your day, guys. I will see you guys next week. Don't forget to turn in your work.
I will. Don't worry. You have a good day too. Bye.
Bye.